Welcome to your weekly Social Jack Influence Factory. Introducing your coaches, Dean Delisle and Jackson Delisle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Influence Factory. Want to welcome everybody on. Hey, Jackson, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Kate is jam-packed with influencers. We now have so many influencers coming on board. She couldn't even make the program, but that's what we do here. We're a team. We help each other out, and we keep things rocking and rolling no matter what happens. And welcome to episode 46. Man, it's December already. Are we a year into this, Jackson? Have we had this a full year?
Almost. And January 17th, it'll be a full year.
Wow. So welcome everybody that stays tuned to us and continues to stay tuned to us. Those of you that are listening live and those of you that are listening on podcast, if you do hear a brief show interruption today, our building is having an evacuation. But the good news is Jackson and I intentionally are in two separate buildings. So if that should happen, we'll make sure that you stay safe while we stay safe. And Jackson will come on with our special guest today. So, but you know what? No matter what, you know us, the show always goes on no matter what happens. And then don't forget to engage with our social media team, hashtag Influence Factory at Get Social Jack. And they are always there, ready and rocking for you. And we're excited to help you each and every week build your influence. So again, a hearty welcome. We are going to be changing platforms after the first of the year, so we're excited about that. And then Jackson and the team are making some significant changes where we're going to be actually broadcasting on multiple live channels at the same time. And then Jackson, when we're done with the, when we're done with this and you package it up and put it on podcast, where does that go right now?
So for the podcast, if you want to listen to us while you're on the go driving, you can listen on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. But if you want to watch the recording after the fact, you can find it on YouTube or on the on our platform app.socialjack.com, and it will be the first one in the resource center. I'll have that up within 24 hours after the broadcast, and it usually only takes about 4 hours to get everything packaged and ready to go, but 24 hours to be safe. So
yeah, last week's guest, she was amazed at how fast you get the podcast up. So kudos to you and the team for making all that happen. Remember, if you're watching live, you can switch to phone call in case you have to take us on the phone. I know a lot of you listen on the phone or on the go to your lunch appointments. Just switch to that phone call or look in your email, and there's always a phone number and access code in there, and the new platform will have that as well, or there is a mobile app. And don't forget to engage with us and win. So today's social question, we always like those of you that are live with us to type it in, or if you're watching us on YouTube or on one of the other platforms, you can type this in as well. The social question is, what is the coolest thing on your current Christmas list? So type that in. What is the current coolest thing on your Christmas list? Jackson, what's the coolest thing on your Christmas list?
I would say that the coolest thing on my Christmas list as of right now is subwoofers.
Subwoofers. Mine is surround sound. What is it with us? It's always about the music. Jimmy.
It's about the music.
Kara and everybody else that's on, what's your favorite thing on your Christmas list? Or maybe you just thought about it and you're like going to put it on the Christmas list. Type that in right now. So we have some people looking for vacations. We have some people looking for a new car. That's pretty aggressive. Yeah, I want a new car too. I don't think it's going to make it this year. I want a vacation too. So if you had the vacation though, where would you go? So type in, what is your favorite thing on your Christmas list? A standing desk. Jimmy Z. Hey, come here, Jimmy. I've got standing desks or power. You're welcome to stop by here and use those anytime. All right, everybody. Well, again, thanks for being with us, and thanks for being with us live or on the podcast. Remember, Social Jack members, you get access to all kinds of forms and worksheets. We have 2019 planning docs and things like that. Jackson, remember, I have a personal goal setting sheet that I want everybody to use before they get into 2019, and I want to make sure that gets uploaded. So I will, I think I sent that out, but can you make a note of that to make sure that gets up and running? And Len is joining us. Look at Len just popped in here. Good to see you, Len. And we also have the influencer intake form updated, and there's some other of our influencer package forms and docs for you. And don't forget, there's always discount codes. Now, we also have what we're calling invitation-only events. And the new Social Jack platform, you're going to see Joe and Jackson and the whole team making upgrades on the back end. We now have notifications. So as you accept those notifications, we're going to have certain networking events pop up in Chicago and then in other cities. As those pop up, they're going to be influencer events where we have significant business influencers. And actually, we have one coming up next week that's going to have some Hollywood celebrity and some local celebrity media. So make sure you watch your notifications. It'll have an access code in there and a way to get to the event, but you will not find it listed on events or on social media. So remember, Social Jack, it's all about who you know. So we'd like to keep those tight so that we can make sure that, that we don't get too many people in there, and it's more of a insiders thing, if you will, just so that we can feel safe to exchange our very best referrals. And that's what we want for you. So, Jackson, with that being said, we have some news today. So let's see.
Yes,
He's going to be coming up shortly here, so I can't wait for that. So as we get to this, so there's 8 infographic best practices for more effective content marketing strategy. So what do you like out of this?
So, I mean, even if we just look at the summary of the article, so if you look, it says, here's a quick summary, and it gives you all of the items that it talks about, and then it shows the pictures and the graphics in the infographic below. But I think the biggest one is pick a topic that speaks to your audience interest, because if you're not doing that, then all of these other steps are going to be almost useless if you're not getting the attention of your audience. So you could be getting the attention of 12 different audiences, but if they're not your audience, it's not gonna convert to leads or sales. So that's a big thing that you want to focus on, is making sure that your graphics, your visuals, your content in general is targeted to your audience. And maybe you want to grab some stats from reputable sources, which is the next one. So that's a big one. And I would say maybe put those into an infographic instead of just saying here's X amount of this and all this stuff. If you just write that out, it's not going to grab the attention as much. If you're developing these infographics and putting your content into those, it's going to stick with them more if it's your own original content and it's grabbing your audience's attention. I think that's important. So two important things that I want to acknowledge here is that, like, if you go into our programs, and this is something I learned a long time ago, but this is super easy. Whatever industry you're in, whatever the target is in, you need to have stats and need to have credible sources for stats. So if you go to the influencer development program that we have, you'll notice we have HubSpot. Everybody knows Hinge is in here. Social Media Today. We'll try to find stats that are relevant to the target audience and the message and whatever it is that we're looking to convey, or the evidence that we want to convey to that audience. And so I think this is a piece where, and maybe some of us are more wired to numbers, some of us are more wired to words and visual, but you want to make sure you don't leave anybody out. So I think that's an excellent thing. And the other thing is, I think that way too many times our audience, and we see this, Kate and I talk about this all the time. We see this with a lot of our clients where they are, I think, overwhelmed because you go to LinkedIn here and you see 200 and you might see 250 or 300 or 400 million people. You start getting overwhelmed. There's 800 people that looked at my profile, and now we feel like we have to speak to all those people, and we become generalists. And I've caught myself doing this too. And so the idea here is to make sure that you are literally, what we always say is maybe even take a picture or put something up on your computer or on your wall, and have a picture of your ideal client in front of you, and
and have a conversation with that person, and you will become more humanized, feel better about it, and really take it to that next level for yourself. So I love this part about just pick a topic that speaks to your audience interests. And I like how you bottom lined it and said, well, you know what, if you don't do this, the rest of this stuff just doesn't count. So so that's huge. And what, so two other big things that you would pick out of here, Jackson?
I would say make sure to include a call to action, which is, I believe it's right there. Yeah, it's the middle one. But
Right.
I would say include a call to action on everything you do, whether it's, it's right there, and it's the big letters, call to action, register now, sign up today, call today for more information, things like that. The call to action is it's also that's going to help in the conversion process or the lead gen process, having them click on the link to get started, things like that. And that's I think the other big thing that you got to do. But again, if you're not doing those other things, that's not going to be very helpful at all. So you have to make sure that it's your audience. Once again, I just want to reiterate that.
Yeah, one of the biggest things, especially with this call to action, and people have gone back and forth. And I know, Jimmy, you subscribe to the Jeff Walker's launch formula, and everybody has a somewhat of a different framework around some of this. But what's interesting is the bottom line is, when you're speaking to your audience or your target, don't make it too much effort to do business with you, right? So if it's download now or get this piece, I've seen people even put 4 or 5 words in a button to make those action buttons even clearer. It's like, download the white paper now, and so we've seen that working. And so I think, again, this is constantly evolving, but if you follow, these are all big best practices that have actually been around for digital for a while. So I think as long as you do this for 2019 and you jump into it, you'll be ready to rock and roll. So that's cool. Well, so Jackson, I want to thank you for that news. That is amazing. Real quick, before I bring our guest on today, which I am so excited about because he's got branding tips for 2019, both for companies and for personal. One of the big deals is transitioning your network. What does this mean? Well, it's the end of the year. Many of you are growing your business. Some of you are transitioning your business. That means you might be merging with another company, might be acquiring another company, you might be transitioning your business to different markets. You might be launching new product lines. We have some new product lines that are launching. So one of the biggest things is, remember that you are in control of your network. So in our program, we always teach you about social teaming. And if you go into Social Jack, and all those classes are in there for free, they're all recently updated. Look at module 200. That is about building the ideal network, and we call it social teaming. So whenever you change products, and we just talked about that target person sitting across from you, please make sure that if your target is shifting, your message needs to shift, your process of connecting to people, your team needs to shift. So make sure you put all those into practice for 2019. And now this is a good reminder to make sure that you're rebuilding and doing your draft picks now for your social team for the new year. So we just want to remind that all the worksheets and tools are in Social Jack. Go in there and log in and get those. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Rani on. Rani was born and raised here in Chicago, and then he didn't like the cold weather, so he moved to Phoenix, and now he can golf when I can't. So Rani, come on down. Rani Sweis, so good to have you on with us today. There he is.
Hey, how are you, Dean?
See, it looks the same temperature there as it is here, so I'm just going to say it doesn't look any warmer,
Well, it's 80 degrees over here. I don't know what it is by you.
It's 80 degrees in here too, indoors. Okay, so here's the thing. So you said you were the token fat kid in high school, 48% body fat, and Rick, who's on with us, he lost a record. I even forget what it is, Rick, but I want to shout out to Rick in our audience, because he's a motivation to me as he's continued late in life to drop some of this his weight. But then you became a paid fitness model. 6% body fat in an actor. So okay, it's that time of year where we're all going on diets, or maybe we're waiting a few weeks. But so what, I just want to know the mindset shift that got you to go, okay, I'm not this person anymore, I'm going to be this person. Can you share that quickly with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So losing weight is hard, especially when it's such a big transformation. And when you talk about mindset shift, I mean, it is a complete shift. It is a life or death mindset. And so for me, growing up, I had chronic asthma. They had to monitor my sleep. All of the cards were stacked against me. And I was born to I'm Middle Eastern, so it's nothing but rice and bread. So that's the diet, and it's every single family engagement they have. They cook as if they're cooking for an entire country, and so you're at odds. And so, but we think about the food system these days, and cheap food is always the worst food, and so it literally has to become you going against the grain if you're going to see that level of results. And so, it's changing the people you spend time with. It's even if it's family, blood is blood, and you can't choose who your family is, but you can choose what habits you take on from them. And so there's a lot that goes into it, but it is a lifestyle. It is a mindset, and it's a commitment. It's not something that you can turn on and off. You have to be all in at all times.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So I just want to commend you for doing that. And I know you and I had a discussion. So that's always easy when you're in transition. I can remember even when I went from I was in wrestling and football and athletics, going into college, and then all of a sudden, I stopped doing some of that, and I was still single in the city. And then as I got into relationships, things tended to settle down a little bit, and I was less, it made that less of a priority. And now I'm in a new chapter where I was like, all right, I went from like 6% body fat to I don't even know what percent body fat, but now I'm in this new commitment to myself, like Rick, who chimed in. But I appreciate you telling us that, because it's all, anything we want to do, whether it's in our business or our bodies or our lives or our families, is possible. And sometimes we just get stuck that that's not us, right?
Yeah, it really is about persistence. It's not like making a purchase, right? It's not you save up and you work hard and you make enough money to buy this thing, and now that you've bought it, you own it. It doesn't work like that. You put your feet up for 1 second, you can, or I shouldn't say 1 second, but 1 month you gain a few pounds, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. So that's cool. And so you're in the personal branding space, you're in the company branding space. We're going to dive into some cool conversations. So those of you that are live with us, or maybe you're tweeting after the fact with this podcast, make sure you get your questions in and hashtag those to Influence Factory, and we'll make sure they get answered, and Rani answers them. So submit those questions as they're coming up. So you left Google. We've had a lot of Googleites, or what do you call yourself? Googlers, right? There's a term for people that work at Google, right? Isn't it Googlers? Or
I've been referred to as worse. So
so what did you do? What did you do at Google?
Sales and marketing.
Okay.
So my entire job was to work with companies locally and nationally to help drive traffic to their websites, to their brands. And the craziest thing is, look, Google's the leader in advertising, digital advertising. And so what we do is what I did was very systemized. It's not like the ad platform changes drastically from customer to customer. And so what I had happen over the years was you're driving traffic, you're doing advertising, people are paying you. And some customers, you could take two identical companies. One will work like gangbusters. They've never made more money in their lives. And the others will fail absolutely miserably. Right. And those were the ones that, would name call, would say, you guys are running some sort of scam. What's going on here? And it's like, no. Trust me, advertising works. It works for this guy over here. And it was that anomaly that drove me nuts. And I had to figure it out. And what I found is 8 times out of 10, it was the brand that wasn't communicating properly to its target audience. And so no matter how much traffic you drove to this website or to this company, nobody gave a shit. So they didn't buy. So conversions didn't happen. And so that is part of why I started shifting from just driving traffic to helping that traffic convert, which is what I call branding versus advertising.
No, that's awesome. And obviously you were attracted to that. And there was there must have been, so there was that moment that you transitioned out of that corporate gig, even though I think of Google, I've been there quite a few times and have friends that work there. I think of it less corporate than like when I was at Merrill Lynch and some of the other places, but it's not entrepreneurial corporate, maybe is a good term. But as you did this, you decided, well, I want to start Attic Salt. Can you take us through that journey or that part of your transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like you said, it's not cubicles and red staplers, but it's still corporate nonetheless. As far as the transition to Attic Salt, for me, I had spent a lot of time helping, my advertisers convert more of that traffic, helping them with their image. I was an artist growing up, and I was engaged with the creativity, the visual, the visual side of advertising a lot more than the analytical side of advertising. I know that everybody's looking at sales funnels and conversions and ROI now, but at the end of the day, we are emotional creatures. We make decisions based on emotion. 90% of our decisions are based on emotion. So visual, the visual aspect, a lot of that is kind of catered to creating emotions, positive emotions that create the desired outcomes that we're looking to create for our companies and our clients. And so coming back around, I knew that that's what I was passionate about. I knew that I wanted to help companies create that image and that voice and those actions that created conversions. And so I decided when I finally got married that there was no better time than right after my wedding to leave my six-figure job and start my own company. And so that's how Attic Salt started.
Yeah, that's cool. So I always like to ask people when they're entrepreneurial and they start their company, do you remember your first client?
Oddly enough, I'd have to think about it.
I know. It's interesting because when we first branch out. So did you? I'm guessing that you got your first client at least from a referral, or you started. I mean, you didn't just like go out and run Google ads, right? Because you had mixed opinions on that. So
right, and the reason I say that is we have grown. We have grown significantly over the last 4.5 years.
Yes, you have.
And in the first months, it was do whatever it takes. Do whatever it takes. Any dime that somebody's throwing at you, we'll make something happen. And so that's why, to me, in my mind, I remember the big wins and try to focus on the future instead of looking at the past.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and it's funny, and so as we evolve in business, it's just interesting the people that we meet along the way. It's like especially in our business, we're dealing from a marketing perspective, and we've both been through, we're part of the Social Media Strategy Summit family, and we continue to connect through different avenues and venues. But one thing I want to dig into a little bit is that you guys are in the corporate branding space as well as the personal branding space, or professional branding, I guess we'll call it. What are you seeing as one of the biggest trends going on right? Like what are you seeing that's trending?
I mean, this is not so much a trend. And I mean, you guys have probably beat this horse to death, but social has disrupted everything. Social media has changed the way brands interact with their customers, period. My job, prior to social media was how do we bring humanity into companies? How do we take an entity and give it a persona as if it were an individual. And
Right.
social media now has completely disrupted that to where the individual could be their own brand. So I think what we're going to start seeing now that it's becoming more mature is, rather than people aimlessly posting everything on social media, as some of them do, myself included sometimes, it's going to become more refined. They're going to start thinking about their brand more, more with tunnel vision and excluding all this other stuff of what they're posting. Nobody cares about what you're eating. Show me why I'm here in the first place. So they're going to become a lot more laser focused in their expression.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, so when you're going in and you're helping a company with their brand identity, I imagine like when we go in, you just see like sort of this, it's almost like looking at a quilt. It's like things they've tried, things they've done. It's like a mashup, of all this different stuff. And in a lot of cases, unless you're going to Fortune 500, and even them, because of the sliding landscape of mergers and acquisitions, they have different problems. So when you first go in, what are some of the first things you ask for or look at when you're looking to sort of set that brand right?
Sure. The first thing, I'll start with the biggest mistake of branding. People, some firms, some designers, some freelancers, whoever does this on a daily basis, some people will dive right in to start creating. They have an idea in their mind of what they think the brand could be, and they're like, okay, let me go ahead and design this. Throw some paint on a canvas, and this is your new brand. Voila. What happens is there's still it may look better, but we're not in the business of making things look better. We're in the business of creating connection between company and consumer. Right. And in order to create something that is truly the company's identity on paper, or the way that they sound, you have to understand where they're currently at. So the most important step in our process is discovery. It's a deep immersion into their company to fully understand it from the inside out, understand the challenges that they're having, and bring them along into deciding what the solutions could be, because now they're all on the same page. We're now developing a stronger foundation for the organization, and then we're taking that and we're translating it into how the company looks, how the company sounds, and how the company acts. And that is what creates that cohesion that people are so attracted to.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I would imagine too that one thing that we see that's out there, and I'll be curious to hear if you're seeing the same thing, is there's this digital fracturing going on with a lot of brands where you can almost tell the evolution of people that have either helped them or worked through the company, where it's like you'll just start to do a discovery digitally, not just within who the brand is, and just find all this random stuff on the internet that is just almost like you need to do a repair job before you're ready to put that brand into the marketplace. You find that a lot as well?
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier, Dean, which is a great point. I don't think it matters whether it's a small startup or a Fortune 500 company. We've worked with both. Every single one of them comes to the table with a mess of ideas. Almost every single time, the first day of our workshops, it's like diarrhea of ideas. Like, let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And it's our job to help them clarify that, eliminate what's not working for them, and become a little bit more clear into what they're putting out into the world. And so that includes everything that is out digitally as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. We just had a client, a Fortune 500 client, that sold a division to another Fortune 500 client. So there was literally 13,000 employees mashing up with 47,000 other employees. It was like one of the craziest frontline positions I've ever had on this coming together. And it was interesting to see how they were transitioning the brands. I think that's something that whether we're a small business or big business, I said early on in the program about transition, and so I think you've had a lot of cool transitions with personal, with your weight. You've had it with, life changes, and then all of a sudden you get into the business change from Google to Addict Salt. And so as we go through these transitions, what are some of the things do you look at when you're either transitioning market or transitioning, brands together? I mean, to me, I think that's a huge overlooked step out there.
I mean, it's looking at the potential. It's looking at it's understanding where do you want to go. A lot of people will just call it, whether it's their brand, whether it's traveling, whether it's, a life change, a career path, they'll hop in the car. They if we were to create an analogy, they hop in the car and, they realize an hour later, I don't know where I'm going. Like they don't properly plan. There's a very common quote out there that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Right.
But so many people are failing to plan. And I think that what creates success is knowing the destination, at least having a clear idea of what you want. Where it ends up, that might not be fully in your control, but at least you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that segues into, I'm thinking about the fact that how often, we've been around, I think we're going into our 17th year.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yeah. And how fun all those years are, right? So,
of course.
So as you're doing a reflection, we're at a critical point here where it's, going from 2018 to 2019. And doesn't 2020 sound like we're like science fiction? Wasn't that always like a number where it was like, it's 2020, that's so far away, and now it's going to be here in like less than a year,
right?
Little change. So
isn't that a sci-fi movie? Actually, isn't there a 2020 sci-fi?
I think there is. Yeah, I think there has to be something like that. So so how often should we sort of do some self-reflection or maybe look at our brand and make sure it's working? What are some of the things you look at or some of the things you coach your clients on as you're going through this process?
I think it's being conscious of it, right? It's admitting you have a problem. Egos can get in the way. People don't like to say that it's not working. And sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to push through things, but there are times where you have to admit that we could be better. I think it's the type of individual that's running, it's at the helm of this ship to recognize where they could be more successful and what's not working. And so you always have to be asking these questions, not by doubting yourself, but by checks and balances, right? If something's not, we test something, if it's not working, let's try it again. And if it still doesn't work, then let's pivot. The last thing you want to do is the definition of insanity is keep trying, with the same outcome.
Yeah, that's excellent point. And I imagine, we've been talking about business or company brand, and right away it's funny. People go, yeah, we should change our logo. That's the first thing they think about. It's like, right. We're conditioned. It's like, wait a minute. No, we're talking about the brand. So for those listening in, that your definition of the company brand, which we probably should have started with, what is that?
That's a terrific question, and it's one of the biggest misunderstandings of a brand, right? People look at the visual identity and say, hey, something's not working. Our customers aren't coming back anymore. It must be our logo. Well, you couldn't be further from the truth. So,
right.
To us, a brand is at the foundation. If you've ever seen or read anything from Simon Sinek, Start With Why. To us, that is the foundation. That why is like what we call it brand essence. Like what really that. It's the heartbeat of your brand, right? We look at a brand as if it was the human body, and the human body would not exist without a heartbeat. And even the brain is useless without a heartbeat. And so there's got to be something pumping blood into the body. There's got to be something. And so what we consider your brand essence is your mission, your vision, what you promise, and your personality. So mission, vision, promises, and your personality.
Personality, I like that. Yeah.
And so when you can define your purpose for existence, that is the biggest task to accomplish. That is the hardest thing to do. And it's most likely the pain point of why you're not attracting the right customers, why you're losing customers, why people aren't coming back. So my advice to people is when you're having an issue as an organization, think about that brand essence and think about your target audience. And if that's not connecting, there's a problem with either who you're targeting or what your brand essence is.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent. Rick asks, and just so we know, my alarm's going off here. So if I have to evacuate, Jackson, please stand. Yeah, please stand by. Should a person continue their personal brand when they've sold off part of their business? How would one go about that?
Read it one more time.
So if should a person continue their personal brand once they've sold part of their business? So, I'm guessing that this person is a big part of their brand. So should they continue their own personal brand when they've sold that part of the business, or how should they look at that?
That all depends on what the goal is. If you've transitioned out of the company into something else and your personal brand, you don't ever have to give up your personal brand. It's you. And if you feel like you have to give up your personal brand or you have to become somebody else because you left the company, then your personal brand probably wasn't strong to begin with. But That is all depending on what your goals are. If your goals are, hey, I want to be a hermit, buy an island with this revenue that I generated from the sale of my company and just be completely off the grid, you probably don't need it. But if you're looking to transition to something using your personal brand, remember, you can be whoever you want to be online, but people know who you are. So if you're trying to be something that you're not, I would suggest abandoning that and becoming more accountable to who you are, because that's authenticity. We talk about authenticity in social.
Yes, thank you.
Be yourself. Stop trying to be somebody you're not.
To this day, I think that's the biggest webcast download that I have had, or podcast download. I had a workshop like 7 years ago and I think it was just early, but it was the power of authenticity. And I really want to focus on this because I think that people are in pure fear of being authentic and genuine. I think, depending on culture, who you are, business owner, and Kate and I were just talking about this. We will interview people and we get the best nuggets and we're like, oh my gosh, this is the best. And they'll go, I don't want that as part of my story. And we're like, what do you mean? It's the thing that makes you who you are. It's the thing that defines you. And so, and I'm just like, so what do you do to overcome that when you find something and then the client's like, no, we don't want to talk about that.
We call them out.
I know, right? So, Kate, remember, I'm going to handle that one for you. I'm known as that person. I don't know, good cop, bad cop, but it's like, are you kidding me? And Kate will get frustrated because it's like the one thing that makes that person so different and so cool about who they are, and then they're just like, no, I don't want to mention that. So I'm like, what?
Yeah, I think you own that. I think that's important. That's if that's what makes you who you are, and let's put social media aside for just a second. Yes. Forget about what attracts people on social media or the social tactics or ads or whatever it is. If what makes you who you are is what attracts people into your life, in your real life, not in your digital life, then that's what you should be putting out on social media, because there's the only thing that social media has changed is accessibility to more people like that. And so it's increased, exponentially the power of connectivity, and, it's dropped the barriers. So you can connect with people just like people who you're connecting in your real life in other countries, in different parts of the world, in different organizations. So own that.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. And so that always takes us into this next part of the conversation. Rick says being authentic is telling your story to people all of the time. Go all in. I love that. Yeah. Are you all in? I like playing Texas Hold'em, so I love when somebody says all in. But
Right.
all the time, it's that commitment to your whole self of who you are, and you're all in on that whole part of yourself. That's awesome. So I love that part. But I always think about, then we always get to the, I don't want to call it the Continental Divide, but the fact is, when do you like on here, you like put it out there, man, you're the former fatty, you're the loving husband, you're the dog father, which we haven't even talked about, coffee enthusiast, creative director, brand marketer. This is like the nugget of the jewel that nobody else owns and nobody's part of, but it's all you. This is like the whole you. So in that, when do you decide, or how do you decide, like, I want this private part, because most people aren't all in and being out there. Some people are like, well, I want this safe space of having, this for like family. And so I'm going to be private over here and public over here. How do you look at that? Like when you get and this happens all the time, when you get a team and some people are all in for being, part of advocacy and do whatever it takes. And then you're like, no, this is mine. This is social media. I'm not going to be all that. So what are some of the conversations you have around that?
I think it goes back to your goals. When I'm on stage, when I talk at events, when I talk about my business, when I put on workshops, I'm all in. That's my profession. That's what I want to put out into the world. That's what I want to help influence and help organizations take their business to the next level. So I'm all in on that. For me personally, I think it comes back to your goals. Like, what do you want to accomplish with social media? Some people feel that they need, there are some people, not necessarily that feel, that just want to put everything, what they ate, what they threw up last night, everything. I like having my private life. I like having moments with my wife, with my family, that I just cherish personally. I think for me, there are a lot of people that create moments in their lives so that they can share it on social media.
Yeah,
I love
that's interesting. Yeah,
I have some of the best friends in the world. I've met some of the greatest people in the world that I've never announced, because I cherish those moments. I don't have those moments so that I can share them on Instagram. I could give a shit.
Right. Yeah, right. I'm with you on that.
So I think to each their own. What is your goal? What do you want to accomplish? And tie that goal to your actions.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll get to that. I wish I had enough time to plan ahead, but I'm more in the moment type thing. And it's like, I'm at this event, and I was even at an event last night where the pictures didn't even go up until today, because I wanted to make sure, and there was some really cool stuff and a bunch of clients there, and it was a holiday party, and I just wanted to be at the holiday party. And I'm like, it's okay if we just put the pictures up tomorrow. And so, if we'll have the social media team there, we'll be live tweeting and things like that. But there are times when I feel like, I just want to be with these people. I only have them for a couple hours, and let's just be together. So I'm with you on that, where I'll catch myself just, going dark or putting it aside and just shutting it down for a little bit. So, and actually I find that refreshing.
Yeah, I think unplugging is a very, very powerful thing. Some of the best memories I've created, some of the best vacations that I've had were ones that I didn't have internet connection. And I was forced to put my smartphone away or my computer away, because it would be useless. And so, but I remember them. I remember, the people I shared them with, remember them. And, these are the things that are most important to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I know we're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but I think it's a cool one for all of us, just because this is a time of year for family and things like that. But I discovered on my iPhone, and I know everybody's got different devices, and I think Google Pixel just came out with something cool. But it's like, literally, if you turn your phone over, it's like automatically on quiet mode. I do that. I have been doing that for a long time. When I'm involved with something, I turn the phone over just so, because I don't see the flash on my screen or the updates. But I think they're building a lot of cool things where it actually allows us to unplug.
Yeah. Here's something interesting, and it's not to take away from the power of social media. It's really to highlight what social media has done for attention deficit. We all feel the pressure. We all feel the FOMO of being on social, and we have to post. We have to be relevant. We have to, if I'm not posting on social media 4, 5, 6 times a day, then I'm not relevant, and people are not going to spend money with me. Here's an interesting fact, and this came out of when iOS released or Apple released their latest iOS that shared the screen time. I remember seeing my screen time, and prior to that, I was always complaining. There's never enough time in the day. I feel like I can get so much done if I had an extra 5 hours. When I saw my screen time and how much time I was putting into Instagram alone, not to mention everything else, I was mortified.
Yeah.
Here I've been complaining for years about the extra time that I wish I had. Well, there it is. I've become a lot more deliberate. I've taken some platforms off of my phone, so I wouldn't be influenced to check them. And I kid you not, Dean. I kid you not. In 2 months, since I've started doing that and being more conscious of my time on social, my business has tripled.
Come on.
Because I am more deliberate. I am more aware of where my time is going, and I'm investing time into things that are actually going to make me money, rather than the fear of missing out by not posting on social media.
Right on. Dude, you should blog about that. Seriously. That should be one of your talks. That is huge. How I tripled my business.
I need an extra couple of hours to write that blog.
Well, you got it now. So you're in. It's all good. That's funny. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's cool. Jimmy writes in and asks, any tips for creating taglines for brands and products? Like what's the process or what's the steps?
A lot of
taglines are tough. Taglines are tough.
My first response is hire Attic Salt. We'll do it for you.
However, if you have less than that amount of money in your budget.
Right. The truth of the matter is, your tagline, the best taglines are tied to a company's mission. Like, what is their purpose? What is their personality? What is their archetype? If we think about one of the best taglines ever, which is probably why they don't change it, is Nike's "Just Do It." And I'll tell you why. Nike, for those who don't know, the name of the company is actually the name of the Greek goddess of victory. And so the entire idea behind Nike, the entire persona, is about achievement and winning. Their brand archetype is the achiever. And so this is the heartbeat of Nike's organization. It's about winning. It's about achievement. And so when we think about their mission to inspire athletes to win, and forgive me, I don't know the exact mission statement, but in a nutshell, it's to inspire athletes to do things that are unimaginable.
Right.
And winning is one of them. And so with this idea of winning in mind, when we think about the Nike slogan, which is just do it, can we imagine what Nike would have done if they talked about their product and said, we make great shoes? Nobody would
Right.
give a shit, right? But it's
Right.
this mindset. It's this winner's mindset. Winners don't put on great shoes. They don't put on breathable tank tops. They just get it done. So it's about capturing your brand's mission. And so that's what that's my advice there is think about what your purpose is as an organization and create a tagline in 5 words or less, the less the better, that captures your brand mission.
Amen, man. And sometimes the answer is right in front of you. You know the logo story with that, right?
I do.
Yeah, that's like just that's the greatest story. What they spend like a couple $1 million or more. It was like $5 million or something. And then wasn't it the CEO that just came in and just drew a switch? He goes, "This is our logo."
So fantastic book for anybody who hasn't read it. I think everybody needs to read it. But it's Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's the memoir of Phil Knight, which is the founder of Nike.
Right.
And he talks about that. He hired a graphic designer. This is when they had no money.
Right.
They were selling millions and millions of dollars in revenue, but they had no profit whatsoever. In fact, Phil had to take a separate job in order to pay his mortgage. So they hired this graphic designer, paid her $35 at the time, and paid her in equity. That equity is like, millions and millions of dollars now.
God bless, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was funny. I was reflecting back when you were saying, so Social Jack, we have more conversations over this tagline. It's all about who you know. And we did that because we were all about social teaming and scouting and drafting. You heard us giving the lessons earlier. And people will come up and argue with me. No, it's about who knows you. And I go, no, you need to be in relationship with your audience and your network. And it all starts with who you decide to know. And so we fought that, but we get so many people that come to us and go, no, it's all about who knows you. And I'm just like, you can't work with us, man. You got to get this game down, And so it's funny how much business we get out of the argument, even over the familiarity of that message, because, growing up in Chicago, it's always like, hey, I got a guy, this, I can get you to here and do that. Well, that's under the hood with everything that we do. But, it's all about knowing that, knowing those key people first and then being in relationship. But it's just, so I thank you. I was reflecting back as you were telling the tagline story. So, so 2019, what do we do differently? What's the outlook here? Let's look into the future, do a little time travel. That's my thing. So
2019. So I think be a little bit more deliberate with who you are. I've mentioned this, but I'll recap it. Define your goal. What is your goal for your personal brand? What do you want to accomplish? If you can wave a magic wand in 1 year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, what does the perfect outlook look like? And then start working backwards to fill in that puzzle. If my goal is to be the leader in brand development, what do I do in the meantime? I educate people on brand. I speak about brand. I read every possible book on brand. Maybe I share tips from those books. I read a lot. If you haven't, I've already mentioned 2 or 3 books. So become who you want, who you see yourself in 10 years. And that is what I would do deliberately about how you post, what you say. We talked about personality, right? If your personality is sarcastic and quirky, don't try to be the Dos Equis guy. Don't try to be Michael Phelps. Be you. So paint the picture of who you are, and maybe create a mood board, right? If my personality is creative, inquisitive, and nerdy, start to put together a mood board of what these visuals look like? What does this type of person say? How does this type of person act? Where would we find him? What brands does this person consume? And so not only does it help you define who you are and who you want to become, but it also helps you define what brands you associate yourself with.
Yes.
So if you find yourself becoming an influencer, and let's say REI reaches out to you and says, "Hey, we'd like you to do a sponsored post." If I know that my personal brand doesn't align with REI, then I would be a shitty person to take that money, because that's not who I am, and people will see through that.
You could go take a hike.
Yeah, there you go.
I had to have a dad joke in there.
That's good.
As your kids get older, you'll get more of those dad jokes. Once again, you had mentioned vision, mission. What were those key components to
mission,
a brand?
Your mission, your values, and remind yourself of those values, because those are the things that you're not going to compromise on. If you could see this wall behind me, we have them here in the office. So make it better. Quality is one of our values. Keep it simple. In this world of noise, simplicity cuts through the crowd. Question everything. So we have this innate sense of curiosity, and question everything is kind of a statement that we live by. And then last and most important to us is small is mightier.
Yes.
We look at companies like Google, and we look at the vast size of them. Some of the greatest ideas that have come out of that organization happened in small groups. And so to us, size doesn't matter. Quality matters over the size of the organization. And so that's where the values come in. And then lastly, your personality. Who are you? How do you interact with the world? What do you want people to say about you? And put that out there.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So as we wrap up here, and again, Ronnie, I want to thank you so much. We always ask people, even if you're listening on the podcast, what's one thing you're going to do differently? And then we're going to announce our winner for today's program. So Ronnie, every show we give away the prize. It's a Starbucks gift card to the person that engages the most with the show, or that we feel has some very significant deep engagement as part of the program, because we know that at the end of the day, if we don't engage, we don't build relationships, we don't connect. It's really sort of the bottom line principle game of winning, whether you're building influence or building your brand. You got to talk. You got to talk to people. You got to engage. You got to get social a little bit, right? So we always ask people, what's that one thing that you're going to do differently moving forward? And we want to make sure you don't just do it, but you help inspire and teach other people what you learned today. So 2019 is coming like a freight train. It'll be here, and all of a sudden it's New Year's Eve and you're in Q1. What's one thing you're going to do differently for your brand? What's one thing you're going to do differently? So type that in right now. So I think what I heard for me is I love that term, brand essence. It feels more real. It feels more, touchable, like a thing. You know what I mean? Like I can feel that brand essence, and to me that feels like it builds culture. I like that. I like that phrase a lot. So, and of course, I'll give you credit every time I say it. So, hashtag Ronnie. So, so with that being said, a lot of people are saying they're looking at their brand. It's not just about the logo. One person is here. Yes, they're going to talk to you about their brand. So this is good. So all good stuff. So real quick, we have a multimedia journalist coming on next week. And some people are saying push their brand. So we have Alicia Henley on next week, multimedia journalist and content creator. So we're going to go from branding to content creation and journalism, and so it's always good to get that piece of now that you get a solid brand, how do you amplify that and get that piece out there? So with that being said, Jackson, you excited about next week's guest?
Yeah, I'm very excited to learn more, always learning here at Social Jack. So it's a
Right.
I'm very excited.
So with that being said, who's our big winner this week?
This week is Rick Gasser.
Rick, awesome. Way to go. So Starbucks gift card. Maybe, Rick, you and I will have to have coffee. It's been a while. And then congratulations, shout out to Rick. He put in here, we mentioned how he lost a bunch of weight himself, lost 135 pounds. Wow. That is just like crazy. And now he's going into the holidays. So there you go. It's like he's going in with that, he's way ahead. So even if he puts on a couple, it's easy to come right back off. He's got the system. So congrats to Rick Gasser out there. And and good job on the weight loss. And remember, the rule is that you share whatever you learned on the Influence Factory with those you care about, not just the person you're having a cup of coffee with. So take the things that you learned from Rani today about your brand, about what to do a little differently, about being authentic, and about those steps to really making sure your brand rocks, both from a personal brand as well as from a business brand. So Rani, I just want to thank you for helping our audience and helping us understand better your system, your process about being a better brand.
It's my pleasure, Dean. Thank you for having me on. It's truly been a privilege and an honor to be with you today.
Absolutely. And then so we're going to send in the post show notes and things like that, everybody, as usual. You'll have a link to all Rani's channels and to his website. And I encourage you to stay tuned. Everybody's saying great session. They loved you, Rani. So you got some new followers coming your way and all that good stuff. And please keep inspiring us with your great content, your talks. And I'm telling you, you have to do a blog, just like I said on that. Article.
I'm gonna put it down on my to-do list right now.
There you go. And you can even just hit me up and I'll we'll partner on it or something. We'll figure out something out of this. But with that being said, have a great holiday to you and your family, and everybody. We'll see you on next week's show, and the rest of you, we'll see you online, growing and inspiring the world with your new brand. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you online.